Do your consumer marketing efforts feel complicated? Experian Automotive delivers data-driven marketing solutions to find new customers and keep loyal ones. Drive measurable results with trusted data and expert support. Learn more at Experian.com/automotive.
Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the last week in May 2025. I'm Jamie Butters, Executive Editor of Automotive News here in Detroit.
And I'm Jake Neher in Detroit, in for Kellen Walker. We're breaking down some of the biggest stories in the auto industry from the past week and looking forward to what's in store in the days ahead. Today on the show, Automotive News Director of Content and Commentary, Omari Gardner, joins the show to talk about how all of the activity in Washington is trickling down to the auto industry.
We were already seeing that momentum, the sales growth slow down, as it was already, and so this looks like another potential headwind.
That's coming up in a few minutes, but first, Jamie, it's nice to be here. It's been a while since we've talked here on Weekend Drive.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Jake.
It's good to see you too. It's been a week of whiplash, tariffs on, then off, and then back on again. A U.S. trade court deemed many of President Trump's tariffs illegal, but now that decision's on hold pending an appeal. It seems like as soon as we think the uncertainty couldn't get more uncertain, it gets even more uncertainter, to make up a word to prove a point here. It just seems like it's hard to imagine it being any more confusing for automakers right now.
Yeah, should not have been a surprise. There would be an appeal. I think, that was pretty clear. It may end up going to the Supreme Court, though it isn't really clear there's that much of a legal basis. I mean, it's possible that the Supreme Court will even decline to hear the case. You look at this case with the Court of International Trade, it was unanimous by the three judges to reject the case that there's an emergency in the economy. And, those judges, interestingly, were appointed by Presidents Obama, Reagan, and Trump. So it seemed pretty universally viewed that it really isn't an emergency. So I'm not sure how far they'll get on appeal.
Does it seem like there is any way that maybe some of these objectives could have been put in place through maybe a less direct but more legally grounded or with a stronger legal foundation and been maybe even more efficient for everybody here?
Well, that's the thing. They could be more legally sound by going through Congress, right? Congress can do this as a matter of policy. The White House can't. The executive branch doesn't have that power, but they want to be more efficient. They want to be more swift. The president wants to be able to declare tariffs by tweet, or I guess True Social posts now are the vogue platform. But, that's not the way that the Constitution was written. That's not the way the rules are supposed to work. Sometimes if Congress chooses to abdicate its authority, the executive branch can seize it. But the courts are saying this really is Congress's job and not just up to the president alone.
Well, staying in Washington, or maybe I should say leaving Washington, Tesla CEO Elon Musk is no longer a special government employee. His time with the Trump administration has come to an end. I'm sure many Tesla shareholders are probably relieved about that, but I'm curious what you think, we'll say maybe even years from now, about his stay in the White House and what it has meant for Tesla and the wider industry here.
Yeah, there's nothing more perilous than journalists predicting the future or trying to project what historians in the future, how they will look back at our time. Obviously, a lot of, the long-term lessons of Elon Musk's, disruptive foray into politics are yet to be written, and we'll see what the fallout is. In the short term, as he returns to his daily life of being the world's richest man and a massive investor and executive, we'll see how focused he is on Tesla, which he really doesn't want to see as an automaker so much as a robotics company. He might also be more interested in X, his own platform, that used to be known as Twitter. SpaceX has always been a real passion project for him. So we'll see kind of where he focuses his efforts now that he's freed up from, a lot of time in Washington and working on the Doge stuff. Obviously a lot of new ground set in terms of the relationship between, billionaire industrialists and the political system. But I think if there is an auto lesson to take away, and, just kind of like with the tariffs, we're seeing the theory played out in real time, is what is the brand damage? What is the effect on the brand for his political activism? As we've talked about so much over the last year, most auto CEOs try to be nonpartisan. They want to sell cars to Republicans and Democrats. It's really hard to run one of these companies selling to only one party, and especially if it's the party that doesn't really like the technology underpinning your product. So, we'll see. We'll see if he can, reform his image and the Tesla brand image with some of the left-leaning EV buyers, or if he can, win over Republicans and get more of them interested in EVs. We'll see how that all plays out. It seems to have done a lot of damage, but, we'll turn on to the next chapter and see what new tales Elon brings us.
And I mean, the other thing that comes to mind is that this couldn't have happened at a more significant moment for him and his companies, that his involvement here. I mean, Tesla, as you said, moving toward robotaxis and robotics and AI, SpaceX really trying to get off the ground to be punny about it. And X, still, is a new company for Elon Musk, and just the broader industry. His involvement came when really those companies were charting their future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many relationships between Elon Musk's companies and the federal government. It's, as at Automotive News, of course, we're very focused on Tesla, but he has a lot of irons in the fire.
Well, going from a longtime CEO to a new one, Stellantis has appointed Antonio Filosa to be its new CEO. Took quite a while to get to this point, but he didn't waste any time going straight to the automaker's dealer network to begin communicating with them. Seems like that played pretty well with many of those dealers. What do you think is going to be his biggest challenge to tackle after Carlos Tavares' tenure that really damaged relationships with retailers, suppliers, and unions, and more?
Yeah, all those relationships are really important. He's certainly gotten off to the right start trying to address them, really even before he became CEO, trying to smooth things over with suppliers, show the dealers that he's listening. He's taken a more humble, collaborative sort of approach, less top-down and dictatorial than was seen with Tavares. So that's all important. But look, to paraphrase a once successful turnaround artist, Mr. Carlos Ghosn, there's nothing wrong with any automaker that great product can't fix. That may be an oversimplification. It really takes great product and harmony and integration among the stakeholder groups. But that's what they're going to need, right? Good vibes aren't going to be enough to fix Stellantis. This new Cherokee that's coming out at the end of the year needs to be a hit. Ram needs some juice, whether that's from, adding a mid-size model or, in the next redesign or, in the refresh. So the solutions will not come quick or easy, but it's got to be all those relationships, everyone pulling together, and then having the right vehicles to make and sell.
Isn't it frustrating that easy fixes just don't seem to exist in
There's no easy
complicated
button.
structure? Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Coming up, our own Omari Gardner joins the show to talk about some of the other big news out of Washington for the industry this week. That's next on Weekend Drive.
Are you an automotive marketer navigating today's rapidly evolving landscape? Finding new customers and nurturing existing relationships can feel like a complex journey. But what if you had a powerful engine fueled by trusted data to guide your way? That's where Experian Automotive comes in. We understand the challenges you face. Today's personalized consumer journeys demand intelligent planning and precise execution. That's why we offer the Experian Marketing Engine, a coordinated suite of data-driven solutions designed to help you develop, execute, and most importantly, measure effective marketing campaigns. At the heart of our solutions is Experian's trusted data and a dedicated automotive team committed to your success. We empower you to drive measurable results with unique data insights, including identity solutions to help you better connect with your ideal customers with greater accuracy by cleaning and enriching your first-party data, Consumer and Market Insights helps you gain a deeper understanding of market trends and consumer behavior, enabling you to better target consumers. Targeted audiences to help you pinpoint and target the right prospects at the right time with the right message. Better data truly connects you to better results. Stop guessing and start driving measurable impact with Experian Automotive. Ready to transform your automotive marketing? Visit Experian.com/automotive to learn how our data-driven solutions can help you find new customers, keep loyal ones, and navigate the road ahead with confidence. That's Experian.com/automotive. Take control of your marketing journey today.
The 2025 Automotive Golf Classic is coming up soon, raising funds for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeastern Michigan. Players will tee off Monday, June 16th at St. John's Resort in Plymouth, Michigan.
Attendees will get exclusive access to the third annual Automotive News Supplier Panel discussion just prior to tee time at 9 a.m. This year's remarks will feature Paul Thomas, president of Bosch North America, along with Colin Shaw, president of MEMA Original Equipment Suppliers. The executive guests will discuss challenges for suppliers stemming from the current trade landscape, new U.S. tariffs, and other critical issues facing the supply chain.
For more information about this event, reach out to Tiffany Sula at the Boys and Girls Clubs at tsula@bgcsm.org or to Philip Nussel, AGC Executive Chairman at pnussel@crane.com. Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Jamie Butters with Jake Neher. Besides tariff tumult and Elon Musk's departure from the Trump administration, there's even more big news for the industry this week out of Washington. The Trump-backed Big Beautiful Bill has plenty of implications for the auto industry. For instance, Ford Chairman Bill Ford says its measure to get rid of production tax credits could put in peril a $2.5 billion EV battery plant under construction in Michigan. Omari Gardner is Director of Content and Commentary at Automotive News. He joins me now to talk about the budget bill and what it could mean for the industry. Omari Gardner, welcome back to Weekend Drive.
Good to be here.
You know, for the last couple of years, it seems like almost all we've talked about was electric vehicles and their rapid growth, their evolution. And it's really kind of fallen off the discussion. But there's actually a lot going on with the Trump administration trying to push back against EVs.
Yeah, lots of activity on the federal front. It's been a whirlwind activity. The automaker planners and suppliers are now just in this big wait and see phase while the market is trying to assess what's going on.
Yes, we have great sympathy for the product planners. Of course, they've got shifting EV policies and the shifting tariffs to work around as they try to execute. But there's a number of specific fronts that the Trump administration has been moving on. One is the California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 effort. We've written a lot about that here at Automotive News, and now there's been an effort in the House, going to the Senate, and probably soon to the president to basically revoke that rule.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that the ACC2 rules mandate a certain percentage of vehicles that are sold in states that follow California's rules. Dealers and automakers are really concerned about.
Well, because there's significant percentages.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about
35%.
In the model year 2026.
Yeah.
I mean, for California, which is in like the low 20s, 20 to 25%, that's a huge jump. Maybe it's doable, but if you look at some of these other states where they're more like the rest of the country with sort of 8-10% EVs, they're not. There's no way they can get to 35% in model year 2026.
Particularly in cold weather states like New York, which is I think as you mentioned 8%, and that's to get to 35% by the end of the year is a really tall order, almost impossible.
Really, the only way to do it would be to just not sell the gas vehicles.
Yeah.
Which would really put a crimp on the industry. It'd put a crimp on consumer choices. Mm-hmm. Prices would go way up. Be a lot of chaos.
Yeah, and considerably fewer sales for the dealers. It would really, really decrease their throughput.
Mm-hmm. And without manufacturers as well.
Yeah, I mean, unless the automakers are willing to pay the penalty.
The problem is that this mechanism, the Congressional Review Act, is arguably not a legal way to address this California bill. The GAO has said this is not the right way to go about it. The parliamentarian has agreed. They say the problem is if you declare this the kind of rule that can be reviewed by Congress, then like anything that's decided at any level of government could then be up for congressional review, which could really slow things down for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a huge disconnect between what government wants to achieve, state level governments want to achieve, what the federal government wants to achieve, and really the business realities and the market realities of what's going on in the auto industry. The intent was noble, but we do need to look at what the market reality is. And we're looking at some very onerous penalties for the industry for a set of mandates that are going to be almost impossible to meet.
Yeah, we've advocated on the editorial board, really, California, the Air Resources Board and Governor Gavin Newsom should just sort of voluntarily walk down some of their demands, know that the goal is right, but the pace is wrong.
Right.
But there's another issue that is, closely related, which is the EPA waiver that allows California to set its own rules on clean air, which they've been granted almost the entire existence of the EPA since, almost as soon as Nixon signed the act to create the EPA, he signed a waiver for California so they could address their smog. But Trump fought back against that in his first term. He's doing it again now. It could end up being a court challenge.
Yeah, and the California mandate has proven to be wildly unpopular among the Republican side of the spectrum. But this really affects the composition of what's sold in the car market, and it looks more likely that Trump may succeed this time unless the courts intervene. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised that Newsom, the California governor, he seems to be making a pivot to the center, rightward for a California Democrat. I would have thought this would be an issue where he could try to find some middle ground, but it doesn't seem like that's a real high goal for him.
Yeah, and maybe he's trying to build a coalition. There's talk that he's considering a presidential run. And maybe a move more towards center can help him build that coalition, build some support for him in California and policy and possibly on the federal level.
Yep. It's already, the race is already taking shape, sorry to say. Mm-hmm. So another issue, when we think back to last year before tariffs became the biggest topic in the industry, one of the big things holding back EV adoption was the lack of charging. And so there was some federal money. Of course, the automakers and other companies are investing in public EV charging, but there was a real concerted effort by the government to make sure that the U.S. would have EV chargers that would allow people who don't have home chargers to, own a vehicle effectively and not feel so landlocked by just the range that they can drive out and get back to their homes.
Yeah. I mean, and really that federal spending was really necessary to help build that network because, as you said, we here in, much of Detroit have the advantage of having a bedroom community, mm-hmm. but places like New York and places like even in California where people may have homes, but not garages or, people who live in apartments or highly urban areas or in the middle of the country, when you're flying over the Rockies and you see just these wide swaths of land mm-hmm. where there are no EV chargers. And, this is a big country and people need to be able to charge and charge effectively.
And so the Trump administration has blocked the release of funds for the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure formula. There's like $3 billion or so that was more than $3 billion that was allocated. Less than 500 actually got contracts signed, and so they're saying they don't want to spend the rest. They want to save that to help pay for other things. Then this has caused a conflict because the money was allocated by Congress, and the GAO and others have said, that Congress has the power of the purse, and you're supposed to spend the money that Congress authorizes.
Yep. We'll have to see how that plays out, and it may go to the courts yet again. We'll need to see, but that money as allocated, as you said, should go toward those EV chargers.
Yeah, we'll see how hard Congress wants to fight, or who else would take up the fight against the Transportation Department. And then the last, the biggest, last big thing in the big budget that is moving from the House to the Senate, a significant rollback for the Inflation Reduction Act efforts promoting EVs. The EV tax credit on new vehicles goes away, maybe next year, some this year, some next year. The used vehicles, the battery plants, it's an aggressive rollback.
Yeah, I think the IRA was supposed to fund the credits till 2032, I think. And now we're looking at, for automakers that have sold more than 200,000 vehicles, we're looking at the end of this year. I think that's only been GM and Tesla.
Well, they had cleared 200,000 before IRA. They were the only ones who had been cut off from the previous program. So, I mean, we haven't even been looking at those volume limits because that was part of the point of IRA. It wouldn't have them.
Right.
But, we know at this point in history, at the time of the IRA and still today in 2025, battery-powered cars cost a lot more to make. And to get the volumes up to help the automakers sell them and not, go bankrupt trying to sell EVs, you need to help the customer get to the price that will more or less cover the costs of making them while they learn how to make them more efficiently.
Right.
Eventually, should be more effective, more cost effective. They're not there yet. It's maybe $10,000. The government putting $7,500 toward it was a big help. You take that away, it gets a lot harder for automakers to justify investing and bringing out new EVs in this market.
Yeah, and we've seen, the past couple of years that the IRA has been in place, and even as American consumers rush to buy EVs to take advantage of the credit, it does make it a lot more palatable on the leasing and the purchase end. And so now for most automakers, that'll end in 2026. And that doesn't give the industry a lot of time to make them less costly. They're working as quickly as the auto industry can. But we will have to see if what happens after 2026, if that really stunts the industry's momentum.
Yeah, well, it's been hard to see in the data because just like we saw a surge in vehicle sales in March and April, people trying to get ahead of the tariffs. Of course, we saw a surge in EV sales at the end of last year, and we've kind of still seen a lot of that, but it feels like a lot of pull ahead, and some of the forecasts for EV sales are diminishing, and if they lose the tax credit, it'll be a lot bleaker.
Yeah, and we were already seeing that momentum, the sales growth slow down as it was already, and so this looks like another potential headwind as things go forward, as those sales have been pulled forward. It doesn't match the natural demand.
Well, it's something that we'll be tracking. Of course, we always watch the registrations of the EVs to see how they're really selling in the market compared with everything else, but we'll be on top of all the policy changes as well. Thanks for joining me, Omari Gardner, Director of Content and Commentary here at Automotive News.
All right, good to be here.
That's all for this Weekend Drive edition of Daily Drive. I'm Jamie Butters.
And I'm Jake Neher, in for Kellen Walker. You can get the latest news on the budget bill, tariffs, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com.
Come back on Monday for my conversation with Lance Wolfer, Vice President of Auto Sales at American Honda. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. If you enjoy the podcast, remember to leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.